What's going on, guys? Spud here, and welcome to the Roundup. In today's episode, we're going to be looking at the Esports World Cup and doing our predictions for who is going to win the first ever Call of Duty Esports World Cup. We're also going to be looking at the Breaking Point Top 20, and I'll kind of do my top 5 because obviously it was regular season top 5 compared to the top 5 after champs. Has changed quite a bit actually. We're also going to look at the Boston Breach because that's the first thing we're going to be looking at is the Boston Breach because obviously out of absolutely nowhere, all staff and players from Oxygen Esports have been let loose. Boston are still competing at the Esports World Cup, but after that, that brand and org could be gone from the CDL forever, most likely, which is a shame because they were one of the only ones that would put up events every year. And also a slight change for Seattle Surge that was kind of expected last year, funnily enough, in the off season, but it is now being officially made as of Saturday, I think it was. If you do enjoy, please do like and subscribe. It is really appreciated. After this episode, we're going to do obviously the results next week for who's won the Esports World Cup. And after that, it'll probably be a monthly upload until the new season starts. So there'll probably be an upload for September, one for October, and then I don't know. Obviously, we don't know when it's going to start. The uploads will probably be a bit more regular during November, though. And then obviously, kind of expecting the season to probably start in December. That obviously could change, but that's kind of where we're at the moment. So it might be like episode 20 before we start getting to the regular uploads again. After this. Um, as well, we're going to keep the episode numbers. We're not going to do like the Modern Warfare 3 roundup season. It's all just going to be under the same episodes and the same playlist. Right, well, without further ado, let's get straight into it. Because we have got quite a bit to talk about. Um, so obviously first, let me just get that there. Sorry about that. Is obviously the first thing we need to talk about is the Boston Breach situation. So as Jacob Hale tweeted, Oxygen Esports is in the process of laying off all staff and ceasing operations. Players have been asked to leave their apartments by tomorrow, and staff have been told that management is seeking a resolution for the current situation. My first thoughts on this, we have got the article which we'll show you very shortly. If they've been only given 24 hours to leave their apartments because the players will be in apartments that are being paid for by the organisation, that is really bad. And I don't even know if that is legal as a tenant. I'm not 100% sure on that. Um, so that's something that I can't really say. I don't know how stuff works as well in America. But this isn't just for obviously just Oxygen Esports and a couple of other esports. They're not just in the Call of Duty scene. So yeah, they were only partnered 3 years ago by the New England Patriots owner Kraft Sports and Entertainment. Now, obviously, if you know the Cronkies who own, Arsenal and other organisations across all different sports, they obviously own the Gorillas. They've been trying to sell that spot, stuff like that. Yeah, so they're in Valorant, Rocket League, Rainbow Six, Apex, and obviously the Boston Breach. Um, but they've spent a lot of money. They've spent a lot of money in the last couple of years trying to get a championship winning roster. It hasn't worked out for them. Um, and so yeah, they lost their access to the Helix facility, which is where they're obviously playing all their CDL matches this year and stuff like that. They have been obviously they have been scrimming with Optic and that. Because there was actually some scrims that were live streamed, which was quite good to watch. Obviously, Dashy dropped a 50. I'm not really going to go too much into the scrims though. So yeah, they are still competing at Riyadh, sorry. Um, so there was Oxygen-owned Shift Summer League playoffs and Rocket League were suspended 30 minutes before they were due to start. That is crazy. They were asked to urged to continue working for free, which is disgraceful. They're trying to resolve the situation, but it's not looking good. Um, Let's be honest, it's not looking good. Now, I couldn't find the tweet, but there was someone that was part of Oxygen Esports that kind of said that everything in this article by Jacob Hale wasn't 100% correct. And obviously he's just getting the information from his sources, so it's not his fault. Um, but yeah, it's likely that we don't see any more of the Boston breach after the Esports World Cup this week. It's a shame because, like I said, they were one of the only teams that were putting events in, along with Optic and Toronto. What does it mean for the league? Will Cloud9 be putting on events, obviously, because they've come into the league? It's a shame because it was always we wanted to get rid of LAG, Vegas probably, because they just do the bare minimum in terms of salaries. They don't actually do anything good for the league. And even maybe like the Ravens and stuff like that. But um, we'll have to see now. Obviously, with Boston, it's a bit different. It's a bit of a different scenario than the Gorillas. So I don't expect obviously Boston to be here next year. There is challenger teams like Ormit that would love to be in the league. And do you know what? I would not be against the team like Ormit in the league. I kind of want to see teams like TSM. I think that'd be pretty cool. But we'll have to see what happens. Obviously, there's no buying clause anymore for $15 million or some ridiculous fee that it was. So that could actually have a positive impact on getting a replacement team for the breach. But obviously, they're still going to be competing in Riyadh this week. And obviously, I'll go through that group shortly when we do our predictions. Next thing we're going to talk about is the Seattle Surge, or should I say Vancouver Surge. So it was kind of mentioned last year that they were going to be relocating to Vancouver for the 2024 season. So it was expected that they would be called the Vancouver Surge. However, they stuck with the Seattle name until Sunday, where it is now Vancouver Surge, and this is what they will be for the Esports World Cup. They did put a few teasers out, and a lot of people were assuming that they might be representing Luminosity at the Esports World Cup, which they have not done. It is going to be Vancouver Surge. I saw someone in the comments, one of the casters for the CDL, saying like, is it going to be, are we going to get events in Vancouver? Probably not because it's Surge, but you never know. We'll have to see what happens next season. Regarding the Sports World Cup as well, it's kind of like the same analysts and casters. There is a couple of different like hosts for the event, but it's kind of the same people. Clayster is on the desk. Obviously, he didn't get a team for the Esports World Cup. I think it's good for Clayster because I don't know if he'll get on a team this year now, to be honest. If he doesn't, that's it. He's retiring. And I think they'll put him on the analyst desk if he wants to do it permanently, which I think he'd be probably okay to do. Moving on now, like I said, this episode isn't really going to be like a really long episode, because there just isn't like too much to talk about that's happened in obviously because there was a week off. There's going to be quite a bit though for the predictions. That's the main part of the video. Now here's the top 20 for the CDL season. This includes champs. So obviously there's there's 3 players on this list that were for teams that didn't even qualify for champs, which was Nero, Gwyn, and Attach. When I think all 3 of them deserve to be on this list, by the way. So Simp is number 1. He obviously got the MVP. Hydra, Scrap, Shottzy, and Dash is the top 5. Now, obviously, I'd Celium in my top 5 during the whole of the season. I still think that was probably the right decision, but based off how champs went, I think the top 5, not the order. I think obviously Shottzy and Dashi are in the top 5 for the best players this year. They were Optic's best 2 players. You could obviously Shottzy and Pred were Optic's best players during champs, the entire champs weekend. But yeah, I think that that those are fair. I think obviously they've put Draza ahead of Celium. I disagree, to be honest. I still think Celium. I know Celium's under a lot of fire for his play style. I still think that he's ahead. Obviously, Pred's champs has boosted him up to, I mean, 7th. He's the 3rd highest SMG on this list. And then it's Kleenex and a Beezy. Wait, who's missing? Am I? Oh no, Simp's there. Sorry, no. So Pred's the 4th highest SMG. Kleenex, and Abizi is out the top 5, which probably is fair when you look at it in the long term now, based off champs. Sib's had a bit of an... Yeah, Sib, to be fair, fried for the last part of this season. I think he was New York's best player at champs. Obviously, Abuza had... I know Seattle did bad, but Abuza himself played well at champs. Kenny obviously had a great champs final. I don't think there's much wrong with this list. Obviously, Kismet's the only player out of the top 4 teams that didn't get on this list. Yeah, I don't think there's really that much wrong with this list. Now, I'm going to give you my top 5. It's going to be quite controversial, of course. Dashi's number 5, and that's where he was for the regular season, and I still agree with that, because it's based off the regular season, and I just think in Stage 4, he was the only player, really, that was showing what he can do for Optic. And obviously, you know, all these clutches. Yeah, his stats were not maybe like amazing or out of this world. In champs, they were good. Obviously, they were good stats, but the amount of clutches he did in Search and Destroy was crazy. Also, they did the Breaking Point and Flank Awards, which most of them I agreed with. Obviously, there was a bit of controversy with the Clutch Player of the Year going to Skies over Dashi, and Dashi let his thoughts be known on that. The overall, all this Breaking Point top 20 players thing was really good. I'm going to show you something after I've done my top 5 about it. Like, they were going into all the stats and all their achievements for the year, and I thought that was really good. So, Scrap was my number 1. Hydra was my... No, it was Scrap, Simp, Hydra, Shots... No, my top 3 before Champs was Scrap, Simp, Hydra. Hydra came second. Scrap came third, yeah. And Simp came 6th. Right, this is where it gets controversial. Okay, Champs is the big one, right? That is the tournament that everyone wants to win. Right, oh my god. I'm going to get pelters for this, I know. I'm putting Simp at number 4 because he didn't show up during Champs, which is the biggest tournament of the year. And other players have done this in previous COD titles, and they've been criticised heavily for it. I'm going to put Simp at number 4. You could argue where these 4 players go, to be honest, because... I mean, Scrap's actually not won an MVP, but Simp won MVP at Major 2, Hydra Major 4, Shottzy Major 3 and Champs, and obviously Kleenex was at Major 1. So Simp at number 4. Number 3, I am going to go with Scrap now. I think number 3 is fair for Scrap, so I'm only changing Simp, Hydra and Shottzy around. Wait, no. Wait, I don't know yet. Potentially. I almost gave it away. Or did I? So Scrap number 3. Great year from Scrap, obviously. Best AR in the game. But I can't remember him being outrageous at Champs. Like, he was good, obviously, and they got a top 3 place in. It's not like he had a bad tournament. No, I'm not saying that. But it wasn't like the 1.2, 1.3 Scrap, let's say, like overall in a series. So then we've got Hydra and Shottzy. Now, I've said this is based off Champs, right? Hydra was good, don't get me wrong. He was amazing for the majority of the games. But Sib was the best player on the subliners for the entire weekend, where I think Shottzy was the best player for Optic on the weekend, and he obviously got the MVP. I'm going to put Hydra 2, and I'm going to put Shottzy at number 1. And the only reason I'm putting Shottzy at number 1 is because he's turned up when it mattered the most. And I know Hydra was amazing. I know Simp was amazing. You could argue for the top 4. You could change him any way you want. And I know I said that about the top 3 originally. I think Shottzy's been the MVP at 2 events. He just won the World Championships. Why wouldn't he be number 1? Now, I'll be honest. Maybe I'd put Simp at 3 and Scrap at 4, actually. But I'm just going to put it as Shottzy, Hydra, Scrap, Simp, Dashi. And then you can argue with the rest of them. But yeah, so what they did was they looked at their stats here, their cards for the year, obviously the 99s, but then you can see that big drop off when it got to the Champs weekend. And it has like all of the stats here. It was really good. Obviously, Breaking Point stats for the entire CDL year have been superb, and obviously I've used them a lot. There's Hydra's cards with the 91. What was Scrap's card? I actually can't remember what Scrap's card was. He actually had a 95 at Champs. So quite interested to see what Scrap... Yeah, Scrap's number 3, I think. Actually, his stats are quite good. You can see, obviously, the Control King, by the way. I think he did get the Control Player of the Year, which is very fair. Right, now it's time to talk Esports World Cup because this is the big event now, isn't it? This is the big event that everyone is going to be talking about, and it starts in less than 48 hours, which is good. It's actually really good times for UK viewers, not so for American viewers. It's kind of different. Normally it's the other way around, obviously, because the CDL is played in North America. I have to deal with that when watching basketball and WWE and stuff like that, so it's fine. So I'm just gonna go through the schedule. So obviously you've got your groups here. You all play a match, and both games in each group will be played at the same time. It's an hour and a half slot, so it will be a best of five. Um, and then I'm gonna show you the rest of it. So first of all, these are your groups. So Group A is Omit Brooklyn, Optic Gaming, Carolina Royal Ravens, and Vegas Legion. Then we've got Vancouver Surge. They've kept the logo the same though on the Vancouver Surge. Not really an issue. There's not really a need to change it, but it would have been nice. Then we've got Cloud9, G2, and Gentle Mates, which is like Bantz's team. Then we've got Stallions, which is FaZe Black, Boston, Heretics, and Toronto. And then 100 Thieves, Law Gaming, Team Falcons, and Atlanta FaZe. So you're going to have a bracket which will look like this, and it's only a single elim once you get to the bracket. I haven't done like a chart for my predictions, I'm just going to verbally say them. Obviously, this is the prize pool, so you get 600k between the four of you, four players. Obviously, the championship points aren't really going to matter for most of these teams, but it'll matter for the teams that have multiple teams across the Esports World Cup. Obviously, these are all the teams attending, which I've kind of already shown. So you do get $20,000 for coming last. So the teams that don't win a single match or get eliminated in the group stage will get $20,000, which is $5,000 each, which is not really that bad because in the CDL, obviously, you get nothing for coming top 12. But it is single elim, so it's like a tie. It's top. Is it top three? No, you'd say it's top four still, actually, wouldn't you? So we've got the first matches of the Esports World Cup. We have got our world champs Optic against Omit Brooklyn and Vegas versus Ravens. So my predictions are going to be... it's tough, you know. Right, I'll do first one. Optic will beat Omit Brooklyn. If Optic lose to Omit Brooklyn, holy shit, it's a shock. I think we will have... So Optic will win, and so will Vegas Legion, I think. So then the elimination match would be Vegas versus, so it would be Carolina versus Omit Brooklyn. So obviously whoever loses that is out automatically, and they would be out on the Thursday. So I think that Ravens beat Brooklyn. So I think Omit Brooklyn would be out. The winners match would be between Optic and Las Vegas Legion, and I think Optic win that and win the group. And then the deciding match is a rematch between the Vegas Legion and the Carolina Royal Ravens. And in this one, I actually think the Carolina the Carolina Royal Ravens will beat Vegas Legion in the decider and will qualify as runners-up in Group A. Group B is Surge, Cloud9, G2, and Gentle Mates. G2 is Minnesota Rocker, by the way, if you weren't aware. So I've got Cloud9 beating Gentle Mates. And then Vancouver Surge versus G2 will be a close one, but I think Surge will win that. Then we have Gentle Mates versus G2 Esports. Right, this is going to be a close one. I think this could go to a game 5. And I'm going to go with G2, though. I just think the Challengers teams just have very, very, very small chance of getting through and winning a match. And Cloud9 will beat Vancouver Surge. It's so weird calling them Vancouver Surge. I mean, it's weird calling Cloud9, New York Cloud9. Obviously, I didn't mention this. They've kind of officially announced now via a podcast that it's going to be Cloud9 New York next season rather than Cloud9ers or New York Cloud9. So they're going to be similar to Optic, where it's the brand first and then the city, because they bought the New York slot. I quite like Cloud9 New York because people will just call them Cloud9. But again, when it was the subliners, you called them New York or subliners. The only reason I kind of brought that up was because I called Surge Seattle rather than Surge, and it's gonna. Would you call them Vancouver? No, you probably just call them Surge now. Right, so where are we at? So G2 beat Gentlemates, Cloud9 beat Surge, and Surge beat G2. So it would be Cloud9 and Vancouver Surge going through. Then we've got Group C, which has got Stallions, Boston Breach, Team Heretics, and Toronto Ultra. So I've got Toronto Ultra beating the Stallions. I have. You see, this one is going to be close. I'm going to go for a bit of a shock for the first match, and I'm going to go with Boston Breach the second match. Right? I'm going to go with Boston Breach beating the Heretics. And then Heretics versus Stallions is going to be really close, but I've got the Heretics winning that. Then Toronto beat Boston, and then it's Heretics versus Boston for the deciding spot, and it will go to the Heretics. They'll get their revenge, I think. Group D, we've got 100 Thieves, Law Gaming, Team Falcons, and Atlanta FaZe. Now, there was some people saying, why are they Atlanta FaZe still and not FaZe Clan? Because obviously FaZe are at the Esports World Cup. Well, the main reason is because Atlanta FaZe is owned by Atlanta Ventures, but they basically just use the FaZe name. So it's still part of FaZe Clan. Let's not lie here. It is still part of FaZe Clan, but they can't represent FaZe Clan because it's Atlanta FaZe. 100 Thieves beat Law Gaming, FaZe beat Falcons, and then obviously this is the only one where this is the only group without three CDL teams. So we've got the Law Gaming versus Team Falcons. Oh, it's going to be close, but because of the fact that Law Gaming are known to be good at search and destroy, I'm going to go with Team Falcons with that home crowd advantage. I've got Falcons winning that. I think FaZe beat 100 Thieves, but then 100 Thieves beat Falcons. So I think FaZe win the group, and then 100 Thieves are runners up. So with how the bracket would work, obviously the only issue is I'm not 100% sure on if it's going to be. From what I'm aware, it's going to be 1A versus 2B, 1B versus 2A, 1C versus 2D, and 1D versus 2C, right? Obviously, that could change on terms of where they face each other. So I'm going to do my prediction as if it's the bracket, but obviously this might not be the same bracket, so I can't really. It's really hard to actually predict because it's to be decided. But I'm hoping that might be something that is kind of. I mean, if we think about what it was at Challengers Champs, obviously there was a losers bracket where there isn't a losers bracket now, but um you had like 1A, 2B, and then you had 1D, 2C, which kind of makes sense. So you can't, so it's you're playing different teams at that part of the tournament. But so I'm gonna kind of work it as if it's Challengers Champs, but I don't know what it's gonna ultimately be like. So it would be Optic versus Surge, FaZe versus Heretics, um, Toronto versus 100 Thieves, which, oh my god, that's actually going to be a crazy series. And who's the last one? Cloud9 versus Carolina Royal Ravens. So I'm going to have to kind of work it like this. So now they're an hour and a half slot, so I assume that it's a best of 5. There was rumours it was going to be a best of 7, but I think it'll only be the final that's a best of 7. So I've got Optic beating Surge 3-1. So they'll go into the semi-finals. Then I've got FaZe. Obviously, this might not be how the groups play out. I don't know. Then I'd have FaZe beating the Heretics 3-1. So we'd have Optic versus FaZe in the semi-finals, which is kind of crazy. Then Toronto beating Actually, wait, hang on. I need to think about this. They're playing 100 Thieves. Obviously, 100 Thieves beat them. It was a game 5 on Saturday, and on Thursday, obviously, Thieves beat them at Champs. I'm gonna go 3-1 Ultra. I do think Ultra knock out 100 Thieves out of the tournament. And then Cloud9 versus Ravens. I think Cloud9 win that 3-0, actually. Which I know it's boring, but it would be the top 4 teams because of the single elim. Optic Gaming versus Atlanta FaZe. And Toronto Ultra versus Cloud9. This is where I've got to think, because I actually don't know. These games could go either way. But we know FaZe's CDL record on a championship Sunday. This is played on a Sunday. Could it happen again? I just don't know. Right. Obviously, the one you want to win is champs. All the pros say this, and they've won it. But I am going to go FaZe 3-2. I think FaZe beat Optic. And then Ultra versus Cloud9. Again, it's going to be 3-2 to one team. I'm going to go with... No, I don't know. I'm going to go with Cloud9, 3-2. So it would be a FaZe Cloud9 final. Right, yeah, I'm happy with that. Obviously, I hope Optic win it, but I'm just being realistic. I think FaZe will have to prove a point. Now, I tend to always predict FaZe to win these tournaments because they're always the favourite, even if they've just finished 6th at Champs. If it was FaZe versus Ultra in the final, by the way, I am betting my house on Toronto Ultra. FaZe versus Cloud9, I think your 2024 Esports World Cup winners for Call of Duty will be Cloud9. I think they'll want their revenge from champs. Yeah, obviously it's not going to be a ring, but you're going to get a lot of money, a trophy, and you'll be known as an Esports World Cup champion, which is a pretty cool thing to be known for. I'm going to go Cloud9 4-2 against FaZe. So that would be my bracket prediction. Which obviously if we base off the money, so Cloud9 would get 600, FaZe would get 320, Optic and Toronto would get 160. Everyone else that qualifies. So if you qualify from the bracket, wait, no. Yeah. So if you get into the bracket, you're guaranteed 80k. You're guaranteed 20k each, right? If you get to the elimination match, you're guaranteed 10k. So there is going to be at least one challenger team that is guaranteed to get into the into the deciding match of their group because of the fact that Team Falcons is a challenger team. Will they potentially be in the CDL next year? I wouldn't be against it because if they put some hard money, we could end up being a 5-team league again, which is kind of what we want. But I'm going to go with Cloud9. Overall, I'm really looking forward to this event, though. I think it'll be really good. It's obviously streamed on Twitch and YouTube. And we'll just have to kind of see what happens. But yeah, overall, I think it looks really positive. I'm going to go with Cloud9, but it could be either of the top 4 teams or 100 Thieves, in my opinion. They're the only 5 teams that could win this. So yeah, I've just gone for that. There's obviously going to be shocks along the way, especially the fact that there's no losers bracket in the main bracket. Obviously, if you lose in the groups, you've still got a chance to get through, which is good. I like how it works. I don't like the single elim too much. I'd rather there was a losers bracket, but it's gonna go really quick. Ultimately, the Esports World Cup. It's gonna be done like that. But that is going to be the end of this episode. Yeah, a relatively short one. Obviously, we're going to be talking a lot about the Esports World Cup in next week's episode and maybe some Rostermania before we have a few weeks off I'll only do an episode if there's like some major urgent stuff. And obviously when like the CDL rules and how many majors come out next year. Thank you very much for watching. If you've enjoyed, do like and subscribe to the video. And until next time, I'll see you then. Bye for now.